Ignition sequence start. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Liftoff. We have a liftoff.
Hey everybody, this is the Digital Asset Investor. Before we get going in the group today, private group, we're going to talk about more about the reset and what's coming. There's a lot of that in this video, but in the group as well. If you'd like to join, there's two ways, less than a cost of a cup of coffee, which I'm drinking right now. You can go to daixrp.com to join through the Patreon, or you can click the join button below all my YouTube videos. You can join through there. Let's get going. I want to show you, I'm trying to, I keep telling you it's a sense of urgency. My new partner, Caleb and Brown, where I've put a significant amount of my XRP to position myself for what's coming. And you should think about it too. Watch this. This is one of the guys at Caleb and Brown. Listen to what he says here, because this is what people don't think about. Every time I've been in one of the bull runs, every time one happens, all these exchanges from Coinbase on down, they lock up, all kinds of bad things like that happen. Listen to what he says here.
As the bull market heats up, we are hearing the same frustrations over and over. Clients locked out of accounts, withdrawal limits suddenly set to $0, and repetitive verification demands. Sound familiar? Your funds should always be accessible when you need them. Finding human support feels like a maze. Just automated replies, endless waits, and silence when the market can move 100% in days. Tired of hidden fees or receiving the wrong coins after withdrawals? Imagine expecting to receive one token but getting another, and then having to pay fees to swap it back over. We've actually seen some exchanges swap ERC20 tokens directly into Ethereum and Stellar tokens into XLM when withdrawn, always with additional fees, of course. These issues might go unnoticed when the market is quiet, but during peak times, they're a nightmare. Platforms freezing during high volatility leave traders unable to access their funds when they need them most. At Caleb and Brown, you'll never face downtime. Our services are always online and ready, no matter how volatile the market goes. We believe cryptocurrency should work for you and not against you. With us, you have access to a personal cryptocurrency broker with a 24/7 team surrounding them. No automated responses, no endless wait times, just real human support when you need it most. We have no withdrawal fees and no hidden costs. You can move your coins at no cost anytime you need to. Plus, no custody costs and certainly no dynamic spreads. Two sneaky expenses we are seeing in the market during this bull run. At Caleb and Brown, what you see is what you get. Transparent fees only on the trades you make, no surprises. We're the world's leading cryptocurrency brokerage, existing for over 8 years. Join Caleb and Brown today.
And if you want to, this is my page that you need to go to. I partnered with them with Brad Combs Digital Perspectives, and to get to this page, I made it easy. There's a link in the description of this YouTube video, but I made it easy. I created a domain just that would forward you to my Caleb and Brown page, and then you click sign up today. You can find that page at xrpwealth589.com. xrpwealth589.com. That is where the page is. Check it out. Paul Barron, we will be attending XRP Las Vegas event. Have a few interviews and some sessions are moderating. Uphold, Miles Franklin, BitGo, Axelar, and many more. If you have an event, DM me. I'm happy to stop by. So looks like he's got interviews with Boone Bergsman over at Web3 Industries. Or maybe he's just showing some of the people that are going to be there, but he is interviewing these guys. Remember, tickets aren't going to last much longer, I don't think. 43 days left. You better hurry. You can get discount rooms at MGM Grand, discount tickets. I'm not sure if the discount's still available or not. You'll have to check. Okay, and by the way, go to xrplasvegas.com for that. 43 days out. The market's down a little bit, not anything too significant. XRP 208, kind of boring, nothing crazy going on there. Update: XRP leads altcoin ETF race with nearly 10 active applications, followed by Solana, Litecoin, Doge, according to SEC. XRP leads the way, folks. Now, I couldn't tell if this was a new thing or not. It was going all around the X platform. ProShares files for XRP ETF. I thought they already had, but if they had already, then it's a good little reminder. ProShares, that's a monster ETF company. Okay, this is interesting. A new Bretton Woods. You know what all of us in the XRP community back that many called it wild speculation. We were cuckoo crazy for talking about this, and now the crypto czar is on a show where they're talking about it.
I can give you an anecdote, and I'll give you a projection. The anecdote is this weekend. My wife and I were in bed.
A new Bretton Woods.
And a person called me, very successful businessman who was representing the president of a country, saying, hey, Chamath, I need some advice. What do we do here? And we walked through the three things that he and his government, that their government, were trying to figure out because they wanted an off-ramp. They were like, I'm ready to cry uncle. We're ready to tap out. And again, he was calling me as a private citizen, but I think this conversation was very instructive. Number one, he's like, look, we have these really high tariffs on inbound American products. We're happy to cut these things to zero. And I said, well, you should do that. Second, while we were exploring, he's like, yeah, we have an enormous capital purchase with Airbus. I said, cancel it. Swap it to Boeing. He's like, done. And then the third, which was interesting, is he's like, we need to import an enormous amount of energy. And I said, well, who do you give that concession to right now? And it was a non-American company. And I said, well, why wouldn't you just RFP that to an American business and let them compete? And he's like, we'd be open to that as well. So he said, we're getting prepared. We want to find a way to talk to the Trump administration. And I'm like, great. However I can be helpful, I'll be helpful to you. I got off the phone. I looked at my wife and I said, if even 30 of these 75 countries do a deal anywhere remotely close to this was an enormous win. So let me give you my projection, Jason, of what the art of the deal could be here. What you do is you can rewrite Bretton Woods 2.0. What was Bretton Woods 1.0? It was fixing exchange rates. It was setting up the IMF. It was setting up the World Bank. Those were the conditions on the ground post-World War II. It made a lot of sense. What would we do if we had to write the Mar-a-Lago Accords right now? I think what we would do is work backwards from the question that Ezra asked and the answer that I gave. How do we create resiliency in these critical markets? Number one, a framework for that. Number two is how do we create limits for government-sponsored intervention against capital for-profit companies, many of whom are American, so that we can actually compete on a level playing field. And then number three, very simply, if you can do business in my country, why can I not do business in yours? And I'll just give you that story for 1 second. I was responsible. I was the head of every single entity of Facebook outside of the United States. I opened every market. My team and I created a framework for dominating. We figured out how to crack Brazil, India, Russia. The one market that we never could ever make a single iota of progress? Say it, Jason, with me.
Well, China, Russia.
No,
Iran.
Wrong. We won in Russia. So my point is, in every single market except one, is it that we were just lucky in 174 markets and one we were stupid? No. So I think that the Mar-a-Lago Accords, this sort of Bretton Woods 2.0, is the outcome, Ezra. It will basically use tariffs as a way to get these governments to a table and allow us to negotiate a much fairer economic quid pro quo.
All right. And it's not just them talking about it. Here's another. The reset is coming.
Leading up to the election last year, famously, the clip's been going around the last couple of weeks of his conversation at the Manhattan Institute last June, where he expressed that he believes there's going to be a monetary restructuring on par with Bretton Woods or the Plaza Accords, and that's a pretty big discussion right now. Is that this Mar-a-Lago Accords that may be on
all of them are talking about Mar-a-Lago Accords
the horizon, and based off of everything you just described, our problem here in the United States, what China may be trying to do by fixing the yuan to gold. Do you think there is a potential for something like a Mar-a-Lago Accords or something of another name where everybody recognizes this is untenable, it's getting out of control, we need to meet at the table and negotiate how we settle this debt situation?
Well, I think the in an ideal world, sure, Marty, that would be great if they did something like that. Good luck with that progress on that, because I think there's a lot of traveling before we get there, and it'll be wonderful to get a deal, and that obviously President Trump would like to oversee such a deal, I'm sure, and so would Scott Bessent. That deal, if it comes, will have to involve gold in some form, because gold is fast becoming the sort of pristine asset or pristine collateral worldwide. Because effectively, if you look at Western financials, or more particularly Western fiscal systems, they're effectively bust, aren't they? I mean, the commitments that have been made in an environment of aging societies are just untenable. I mean, how can we afford? How can younger generations afford this? It really is. It's crazy. So you've either got to renege somehow on those promises, or you've got to somehow devalue paper money, which means ultimately reorganizing the whole international financial system. And that's what we've got to do. But it's a big ask, and it's not going to happen overnight. But I think gold has to play a much bigger role in that somewhere else.
You're darn right it does. And this is another clip from this guy. Listen to him.
Gold is like the pole star in the sky that navigators use to actually get their bearing. Gold doesn't really move, actually. It's everything else falls against it. And what you want to do is to fall at a lesser rate. What's happening with paper money devaluation is that everyone is devaluing dramatically against gold. And you see that in the example I give with with U.S. Treasury debt outstanding. If U.S. Treasury debt is growing at 8% per annum, that means it doubles every 10 years, right? So the stock of treasuries is going to double in the next 10 years just by looking at the growth rate we currently got. That means the gold price should double. There are not going to be many investments you could think of off the top of your head that will do that. I mean, Bitcoin may do exactly the same, at least. So these are the sort of monetary inflation hedges
XRP will too.
We need, in my view. But the way that you restore the system is to get everybody to do the same thing. Everybody devalues.
I'll tell you another way to restore the system. Start printing stable coins to buy U.S. Treasuries, providing massive liquidity to the crypto industry, driving the prices of all crypto up. Now, look at this. This is interesting. This is Matthew Siegel of Van Eck. I want to play this for you, and then I want to explain reality.
We think there's a good chance that central banks and sovereign wealth funds will start to get more aggressive in adopting Bitcoin, not only as a store of value, but also as a medium exchange. So this year, the Czech Republic, the governor of the central bank there, has initiated a study to analyze Bitcoin for inclusion in their central bank reserves. And then just this week, Russia did a trade with China, partially denominated in Bitcoin, beginning to really use Bitcoin for the first time as a medium of exchange. And that's not for individuals buying coffee. That's for large-scale transactions where countries are using Bitcoin as an intermediary currency to do, say, an oil trade. And in that scenario where Bitcoin-denominated trade could be, say, 5% of global trade, we get to a $3 million price per Bitcoin. That's a long-term prediction, like 2050, but that's going to be necessary, we think, to elevate Bitcoin into the millions per coin.
Now, I'm all for Bitcoin being a medium of exchange for the world and fulfilling the original vision of the white paper, which it has failed at. But there's a big, huge problem. The Lightning Network, which is what the Bitcoin maxis all hail, has a problem. And the problem is that sometimes Bitcoin gets really slow on the Lightning Network. It says network congestions. During periods of high Bitcoin network activity, on-chain transactions for opening, closing channels or resolve disputes face delays if fees aren't competitive. Node issues, offline or unresponsive nodes along the payment path can cause delays. And then, let's see. Opening a new payment channel requires on-chain Bitcoin transaction, which must be confirmed on the blockchain. Bitcoin's average block time is 10 minutes, but confirmation can take longer if the network is congested or the transaction fee is too low to be prioritized by miners. It's got an inherent defect, folks. That's why this was put out by Jack Dorsey, where Bitcoin gets taken to the next level and put on the XRP ledger. Let's not forget, do you remember when Matt Hamilton schooled the Da Vinci guy about Bitcoin?
Faster networks, right? Which will allow us to actually instantly send transactions. What happens if we have instant transaction settlement across all the network nodes, right? What happens if that happens? You know what I mean?
That can't be done by changing something underneath Bitcoin. That can only be done by changing.
That is what's underneath, is the actual physical layers, right? That's
But
like,
you
for
change
example,
those and Bitcoin stays the same.
You
The
change-
Bitcoin
no,
algorithm
no,
specifically
because
compensates.
yes,
for
the
those
algorithm
changes.
stays the same, just like TCP/IP does, right? But all of a sudden, because of a lot of equipment, the physical equipment, everything becomes faster. Bitcoin becomes faster. That's
It
the
works.
same.
If you change
same
all
thing.
that underneath,
Right.
Bitcoin
So-
still does 7 transactions a
So-
second and
No,
still
it doesn't.
a block
No, it
every 10
doesn't,
minutes.
because-
In order to change those, you've got to change the parameters of Bitcoin itself, not the
Because-
underlying. If I suddenly get a miner that can mine 10 times as many blocks a second, that doesn't change the speed of Bitcoin. We've seen that already, right? Bitcoin miners are now faster than they ever were, and that doesn't change, right? Bitcoin is designed to keep the block time constant, and hence the number of transactions per second constant. The only way of changing those is by changing the actual parameters of Bitcoin itself. You can't do that by changing an underlying layer. We've seen that over time. Otherwise, Bitcoin would now be 100 times, 1,000 times, 10,000 times faster than it was, because we've got ASICs running instead of, my desktop CPU running as it was, back in the day when I used to mine, right? Changing the underlying hardware doesn't change the speed or capabilities of Bitcoin.
That's the little problem. And here Matt was on a Spaces where he laid it out.
The XRP ledger was the first majorly different blockchain to Bitcoin. And one of the interesting things being is that one of the main uses for the XRP ledger initially was to tokenize Bitcoin, was to be like what people use Lightning for now for Bitcoin, right? The original developers of the XRP ledger were Bitcoin developers.
Whoops. Okay, we're going to go into DAIXRP.com. That's the Patreon. If you'd rather join through YouTube, click the join button below. I'm going to talk to you about, we're going to talk more about what I believe is the coming reset, Bretton Woods 2.0 and all that. But I'm going to tell you what I think the United States secret weapon is, besides XRP. But it will, I believe it will involve XRP. We're going to talk about the secret weapon. I'm the digital asset investor. I'm not an investment advisor. This is for entertainment purposes only. Please subscribe, hit the like button, and tell your friends and family. Let's go talk about the secret weapon.